Hello, everyone, everywhere. This is Bob Thibodeau with the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, and you are listening to the Going North podcast with my good friend Dom Brightman. Be sure to subscribe to his podcast so you will not miss any of the upcoming episodes, and be blessed in all that you do.
And today on the Going North podcast, we're back at you again with yet another author, but not just any author. This wonderful author right here has all sorts of wisdom because he's the founder of the Ranch Recovery Center in not only Tennessee, as well as the Canyon Treatment Center in Malibu, California. He's also the co-founder of Nashville's Integrative Life Center and Community Recovery Program in Nashville, Tennessee. And this wonderful guy right here also has an extensive background as a filmmaker as well as a songwriter. And you're probably wondering who the heck this guy is, because you got all these stars coming in on this podcast, Dom. Well, it's the one, the only, Lee McCormick. How are you today, sir?
I'm all right, Dom. It's good to talk to you, man. Happy Monday.
Yes. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. If I found another person of the 0.5% who could say Happy Monday, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Woo! Well, we had a short little chat earlier about how you did a lot of things in life, and now you're at a point now where you're just giving out all this wisdom to the world and mind, telling us a bit about yourself and fill us in the gaps and how you got to where you currently are. I spent the first 40 years of my life trying to make what the way we're all taught a point of view about how life is and how life works and what we need to do to be good enough and how to be respectable or successful. And there's a whole, there are a lot of scripts that we inherit in life. And I spent the first 40 years operating, with those scripts to varying degrees of success and disaster as it goes. And after I'd done a lot of things, I grew up in a family that was in the cattle business and in the construction business and in the grocery business. So there was a lot of interest, a lot of diversity in the family that I grew up in. And my parents had got divorced when I was 12. So my stepdad, he was a very successful guy. And so between my blood family and my stepdad and all of his interests, I had a broad array of experiences. And I spent several years playing music. I still play, but I moved to Nashville with a band and was on the road for a few years, and one thing led to another, got married, had a couple beautiful little girls. But there was always a disconnect. I realize that now. I was never really 100% comfortable being me. My personality pretty much ran my life. A statement like that, I wouldn't even get that statement. I wouldn't have gotten that statement 20 years ago because I didn't know myself apart from my personality. And the way life seems to roll is we can get way out in left field. We can really lose relationship to ourselves. We can get lost in the mix of all the chaos and the judgments and the successes and failures and the roles that we play and identify ourselves by or identify ourselves as the roles that we live. Fortunately for me, the mess that I made in my life pointed me in the direction of getting involved in recovery work, checking myself into a treatment center years ago. And that really started a new journey for me. It was the first time in my life that I really got grounded and settled and was offered other points of view on what life could really be about, something more than acquiring stuff and earning degrees and just something beyond the scripts of what life should be that I had inherited. And I guess I had a knack for turning that into a bit of an adventure. It gave me permission to question everything. I gave myself permission, going into this recovery world to question everything. It worked for me. I've had the opportunity to, I've never given up on the things that I really loved doing. For that first 40 years, I still have a ranch. I still raise quarter horses. I still run a bunch of cows, and I've always been involved in the cattle world, and I still surf. I grew up on the beach in Florida, but we also had a family farm like 6-7 miles from the ocean. So I didn't give up on the things I actually loved doing, but I've found a way to undo those things that existed really out of fear or insecurity or just plain old habits that I had created that you come to call addictions. I just see addictions as simply patterns, energetic patterns that we create, and we live those patterns over and over and over for so long that the pattern ends up having more power over us than we necessarily have available to change the pattern, without finding some kind of support or help in breaking those patterns and then taking yourself apart and questioning yourself. So I'm very fortunate, man. And I enjoy life these days, but I still question everything.
Wise policy, indeed, wise policy. I mean, that's really true what you said there about the script of life. It's like you come into the world, there's a ready-made script for you, and it may have a few modifications depending on where you are geographically, but it usually is in the same vicinity. It's like, all right, go to school, get a degree, get like this good paying job possibly, and marry, have a couple kids, keep the cycle going.
Yeah, and that's supposed to lead you to happiness, and it's not like I had to get beyond the judging it thing. It's not that the scripts are wrong or bad. It's just that more than likely they're not actually the truth for you. Like I had to figure out what's actually true for me. And that's challenging because it's easy to say, well, I'm doing everything right and that makes me good enough. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do and that makes me good enough. What I figured out is if my good enough is really based in a story I'm telling instead of like an inherent sense of I'm okay and I really am good enough on the inside, then it's just really fragile. It's very, I guess you could say, egoic. And I don't see it any of it anymore as being bad or wrong. I see it as being cause and effect, and what I know is if you're not happy with your life, then you're the one responsible for undoing that and changing that. And that takes some courage, and it takes some practice, and it takes some discipline. And I don't care what the challenge is. I think life is always on our side. I think that can be really difficult to accept sometimes because this world is sure a trip. I say we're born into a mess, and we just inherit a little piece of that action, and it's not personal.
I like that. Oh, man, it's true.
Yeah, so the question is, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with it? You want to use that mess as inspiration and use that mess as a way of serving you in a capacity, or do you want to become a victim to the mess and let it just live on top of you? What do you want to do?
That's right. Just grab a broom, grab a mop, grab some Lysol, some hot water, some soap. Clean up some of it.
Yeah, spend some time in front of the mirror, like, who am I? What am I doing here?
Woo. Yeah, well, so speaking of scripts and finding ways to break through them, you're able to find a way to publish a wonderful book called the Hartree Connection Guidebook. So how did that come about?
Conspiring with a group of other spiritual terrorists. Like attracts like, man. I found that to be true. It sounds cliche, but it certainly seems to be true. So, I've got some fantastic friends, and I've never been afraid. Well, I can't say never. For the last several years, I've not been afraid to just go put myself in the middle of people that I really respect, like Joan Borisenko, or, I had the opportunity of, I've just had opportunities to spend time with a lot of great people. I've spent several years working with Miguel Ruiz that wrote the 4 Agreements, and all the people that are involved in the Hartree Connection guidebook, Holly Cook, Will Tagle, Gary Seidler, Joan Borisenko, and my co-writer partner, Mary Faulkner. They're all people that I really respect and that have years of experience in life and healing work and, recovery work. And the thing that we shared is that all of us have been around long enough that our point of view around what we call recovery or what we call healing is it's really about how do we find a way to be free and to be authentic and to love the life that we're creating for ourselves and to love the life that we're waking up to in the morning, and make this healing journey or this recovery journey about inspiration and alchemy, man. It's like, we humans hold the ability to take heartbreak and trauma and tragedy and suffering. We have the ability to take all that and all that energy and all that experience and transform it into something fantastic. We literally hold the power and the ability to create reality once we wake up to that. And it's a very humbling awakening, to realize that what I wake up to in the morning is Lee world. And it exists the way it does because I created it that way. I'm not a victim of anything. And the Hartree Connection book came about from this kind of a conversation. All of us were sitting around Joan's house in Santa Fe, and out of the conversation, it was like, wow, with the diversity of our backgrounds, with the years of experience, I'm the least experienced out of the crew, and I've been doing this 20 years. If we were to come together and share points of view and find a thread and write a book around living life from the heart again, living life from our heart and our spirit and expressing what we have passion for in life rather, as opposed to trying to live a life of compliance and good enough based on somebody else's rules or somebody else's judgments and opinions, it could be a pretty fantastic project. So everybody said, yeah, let's do that. Well, then I took the lead on it, which I tend to kind of do. I like to get out front and take things over and then find people to delegate to. So we created this book. It was a cool journey. And, I'm actually really proud of it. I really respect everyone that was involved, and Mary did an amazing job. Our editor is fantastic, a woman named Carol Rosenberg that lives down in South Florida. And, the whole project was a genuinely creative process. And our publisher's fantastic, Health Communications in South Florida. It's just everybody involved kind of had a buzz to it.
Man, that is amazing indeed. And right about the publisher, indeed, the Health Communications has been around for decades and helped publish the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I don't know, man, what I've realized, and it's reflected in the Hartree Connection guidebook, when we open ourselves up to life and you actually have a conversation with life like you have a conversation with the sky, or you have a conversation with your spouse or your friends, talk to life, say, hey, what's going on here? Tell the universe, tell God, tell your spirit people, talk to them. And they respond. They really respond. It's also a good way to get a seat on the bus or on the subway. If you go in talking to yourself, they think you're talking to yourself. They don't realize you're talking to the spirit people or to the creator. So people get up and move because they think you're nuts. Well, that works for you too.
It's true. It is really powerful indeed, and I have to say, I really did enjoy the book. It did kind of catch me off guard in a way, because with books like these and interviewing folks, you just try to speed read through them. But with this one, it's just not possible to get the best and the most out of the book. It's just so really powerful. It just goes from the introduction, and then it goes into like the 4 directions in the Wheel of Life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the medicine wheel was such a natural framework. You know, what we all have learned, what you realize when you work with people who are trying to sort their life out, we're really served by having a frame around what we're doing. It gives us a focus for our attention. You know, in our culture, we have all this insane ability to communicate all the time, you know, with cell phones and social media and laptops and everything. And we're all, I don't know, in varying degrees of almost like a manic, you know, connection and communication state, which is fantastic in a lot of regards. And it takes a big toll on our ever bringing our attention really back to ourselves and sitting with ourselves without being distracted by the world around us, and get to know ourselves again and pay attention to our feelings, pay attention to our intuition, to, you know, how does it feel being in my body, being in this world? How does it feel when I wake up in the morning? How does it feel when I'm sitting at work? How does it feel interacting with my family? Like, what's the truth? You know, so creating a frame of reference is really important, and it really serves us. You know, it allows us to develop some discipline also in holding our attention with ourselves. And the medicine wheel, there are wheels, you know, medicine wheel traditions all over the world. You know, the circle of life, as it's said in a cliche fashion, actually, when you've been around for more than 30 or 40 years, you realize life does run in big circles. You know, what goes around does come around again, and you meet yourself over and over again. That was the opportunity that using the medicine wheel as the frame for this practice, for this book, offered. You know, it's not a linear process. Getting to know ourselves, you know, being with ourselves as we move through stages of life and phases of life. You know, we're worthy of really spending time with ourselves. Like, we're what's sacred in this world. Our jobs are not sacred. Our financial status is not sacred. You know, a political position, it's not sacred. Our humanity is what's sacred, our heart and our spirit. You know, where we come from, the reason that we're here. Although that gets hijacked by those scripts, you know, and by our cultural points of view, which is all man-made, by the way. And so we abandon ourselves, we abandon our heart and our spirit, we abandon our authenticity for the sake of fitting in and trying to be good enough based on cultural terms or religious terms or, you know, somebody else's terms. And then we wonder why, you know, we don't feel good. Well, it's like, we're not really living a relationship with ourselves. We're living a relationship with a whole bunch of stories. So the medicine wheel really served the opportunity of, let's bring our attention back to ourselves and let's use this as a frame of reference as we work around the wheel and look at these different aspects of who we are as human beings.
Beautiful indeed, beautiful indeed. It's kind of funny how you're calling you and the group of buddies a spiritual terrorist, and it's kind of when you got the scripts that can hijack life potential. So I guess the way you're helping folks to basically send away those scripts via the bomb of this book and have them think about it a little bit deeper, their life a little bit deeper.
Absolutely, man. Well, we're worthy of it. That's the thing. You know, we're worthy of it. Like, you know, like the old Bob Dylan song, you got to serve somebody. You know, so what are you serving? You know, I don't know. You know, in the recovery world and in our culture too, we're all raised with varying stories that if you give too much time and attention to yourself, or if you do what you really want to do, that you're guilty and you're selfish. And I mean, I was taught that as a kid. A lot of people are basically taught that, if you're not suffering, if you're not working so hard, you're suffering, then you're not working hard enough. There's just a lot of insane stuff that we're taught, that's like, who the hell made this up? Like, it makes no sense. And look at our culture. Look around the world. All these people in misery, and we're willing to kill each other over our stories of God. And, we can't slow down long enough to go eat good, clean, fresh food. So we're in a drive-through line eating something that's not food, but it's presented as food. And, and then our health suffers, and, we get overweight, and then we're eating medications to deal with the symptoms. It's like, okay, wait a minute. We need to step out of this loop for a minute and come back to questioning, like, okay, am I in service to life, or am I in service to some story that I've taken on that, I've gotten lost in? Like, what am I really doing here? Because the only person responsible for the quality of my life is me, right? And if I'm not taking care of me, then I'm not taking care of the one God created to be in this world for some reason. And, you can't serve two masters. You can play around with it. You can attempt to serve 2 or 3 or 4 different situations at once. That's cool. But the truth is, on a baseline, we have to determine, what do we really value, and what are we really serving here? Are we serving life, or are we serving some story? And if we're serving a story, what's the truth? Like, look around. What's the truth? Is that story creating happy, joyous, and free human beings, or something else?
Amen to that. And what? You could be serving life pancakes. You never know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, there's a whole section in the book, too. I came to this realization that, even our suffering, and certainly there's varying degrees of suffering. And the truth is, even our suffering can be an invitation from life to pay attention, and can actually hook our attention. If you're miserable enough, or in pain enough, or heartbroken enough, or lost in an addictive pattern, or any kind of dysfunctional behavioral pattern that's not really serving you anymore. The suffering that arises out of that, I came to realize from a point of view, is actually an aspect of the integrity of life, trying to get us to pay attention. The first time you go out and get drunk, you have a hangover, it's like, well, no big deal. But if you've been doing that for 20 years and you're waking up that way 2 or 3 times a week, it's like, what, at some point you might want to pay attention here, bud, because, there's probably not a good end game here.
Amen to that. 2 or 3 times a week, pounding a hangover for 20 years. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, and that of course, misery loves company. So, in anything, we tend to be indulgent, and I think it all keeps coming back to the fact that to fit into our culture, so much of what was required of us as children to be good enough, it pretty much demanded that we abandon ourselves for the sake of the rules of the family, or the rules of the religion, or the rules of the neighborhood, or the rules of the culture. Like I couldn't, when I was a kid growing up, it was all about being a good boy. And a lot of those rules, a lot of those expectations were great. And what was lost in the mix is I was not really taught to have a deep, abiding awareness of who are you, Lee? Like, who are you? And what do you want to do with your life? Because the way you express your life in this world is a sacred act. Like, your life has value, and you're here for a reason. And so do you want to live chasing the judgment and opinion of the world, or do you want to live expressing something from a heart and soul level, that could be even greater? And it's a task. Being authentic's a task. So I don't know. I think we're clearly, if you look around, there are enough challenges these days in this world, and there's no shortage of messes and conflict. If what we were living was based in the truth, we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing every day on the news. We're not living. The truth doesn't bring hate and fear and conflict and greed and destruction and judgment and all that. That's not an aspect of the truth. That's an aspect of trying to defend something that's not true, from my experience.
Yeah, probably heard like heck the first time hearing it, though, right?
Well, yeah, man, it scares you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Good grief. For me, man, it was tough learning to be able to say, oh, I was wrong. Oh, I believed that for a long time. I really believed that. Well, I realize now it's not true. Like, that's a big step. Just being able to say, okay, yeah, I was wrong. It's a big deal because my value for so long in my life, my value was tied to me needing to be right. If I wasn't right, then I had less value. Then if you're not right, then what are you doing here? Kind of a thing. So, and then what I've realized over the years is there's way more freedom offered in being wrong than there is in being right. Being right tends to attach you to things. Being wrong frees you up. You can go find a new point of view, or go find a new career, or go find a new relationship with yourself. Being wrong's an open door.
Now that is very, very true. And I never even thought of it that way. That is awesome.
Yeah, see, I told you, man, I'm good at questioning things, and I always want to try and find a way to frame it to where it's in service to us instead of judgment of us, right?
Amen to that, indeed. Amen to that. That's good. You got folks like yourself questioning things, and has at least a voice out there to actually give folks a new perspective to at least look at first, as opposed to just proposing it as just the hard, solid truth. Because it may not be the same for everybody else, and some folks may need more time than others to accept it.
Oh, absolutely, and we're each deserving of that time and that energy. Like, if God created us, if you believe in the concept of a creator, or you believe there's something greater going on here than what we've got figured out, okay? Whatever story you want to tell about that, it's all cool, right? So if you believe that there's something greater going on here, then one of the primary questions that I like to sit with is, okay, well then how can I best be aligned with the intent of the one that created me? How can I best be of service? And let's just call that life. I use the term life for God all the time, because I tell you, I can't tell you where God begins or ends, or, to me it's all just one big show we're in here, and I call it life. So how can I be of the greatest service to life? And as I sat with that, and I kept questioning that, I realized, okay, the culture that I'm living in, the matrix of man as such, with all of our religions and all of our cultural beliefs and all of our stuff, all our opinions, all our rules, all our judgments, all of our classifications and labels and identities that all are rooted in the culture. Am I of the greatest service to life by finding my authenticity and my truth and separate myself out from all that stuff, and then try to do my best to be a service in life, or do I just give my faith to the culture and roll with the script and not so much worry about how I really feel underneath about it all. It's challenging, and each of us has a unique relationship to being here. I do know that. I see that. And there are some collective things that bring us together. And that's always a heart and soul thing, unless it's basic survival, like, not having enough food to eat will bring people together pretty quick. There's basic survival stuff that brings the tribal aspect of our humanity back together again, hopefully. I don't know. It's interesting. I think the whole human population we're in a really great place right now to individually start questioning everything. Because who are you going to blindly follow today and give your faith to? Who are you going to give blind faith to today? I'm not overly impressed with what humanity's doing out there. I think we've got more within us than we have going on around us as far as solutions are concerned.
Very true indeed. Very true indeed. And especially nowadays with so much information out there, so much information. Do you think there's going to be another book coming up soon? And well, not soon, but another follow book to the Hartree Connection guidebook?
Yeah, what I want to create next, and what we've talked about, is doing a Hartree Connection journal that would be a workbook of sorts. That's just a continuation of what's offered, in the Hartree Connection guidebook. Because, we have all the practices and the points of view, and there's a lot of opportunity to engage in things in the Hartree Connection guidebook. I'd like to elaborate on that further with a journal. But then, at the same time, this book's only been out less than a month. So, I don't know, man. More will be revealed, right?
That's true. Since it's the holiday season, the wrapping paper will come off soon.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? This is a great book to buy one for everybody in your family. I think that's an amazing idea. I tell people I had a buddy that was in the citrus business in Florida years ago. I used to run a bunch of cows in South Florida. I had a buddy, and that guy in the citrus business, he used to say, orange juice, it's just amazing, just buy it. I don't care what you do with it. You pour it out on the ground if you want to. Buy it.
Oh, man. So I don't care what you do with it, just buy it.
Yeah, just buy it. Take it home. Yeah, so, buy the Hartree Connection guidebook. It'll be good for you. So, for all my work and all my spiritual elaborations, I still have a little bit of a capitalist in me, right?
Hey, you're in the business of immortality by default, being an author, so ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you remember Abby Hoffman, that book in I guess that was the late 60s, Buy This Book. Remember? Steal This Book. Was it Steal This Book?
It might have been.
Hoffman. Yeah, I think it was Steal This Book. That was one of the funniest titles I ever heard in my life. But don't steal our book. Please buy it. Or better than that, go buy it at your local bookstore. Man, we need local bookstores again. We need community again. Good grief. It's almost Christmas. Go buy from local people. Heck with all this. You want to cure the trade imbalance with China? Go buy American-made goods and pay $1 more for a shirt. Come on, folks. You can't have it both ways. I'm all about community, man. And how do we recreate community in our country? Like real community, because true community is eclectic and it's diverse and it's creative. And, a healthy community, everybody doesn't agree to the same belief systems. You got multiple points of view. You've got you've got all kind of gender identity. You've got it's like nature is present there. Creation is present there. Healthy communities have a lot of diversity, and that's even revealed, especially in nature. If you go into a monoculture field that's nothing but corn, there isn't a whole lot of life going on in that field. You go into the woods where there's grasses and weeds and trees and bushes and all kind of stuff growing. The more diversity, the more life there is present there. So I think our human thing, we sort ourselves off and we separate ourselves out into like-minded groups of people, and then that like-mindedness tends to get narrower and narrower, and we end up calling it fundamentalism, but it's driven by fear. Because if we're not right, then we're wrong, and if we're wrong, we don't have value, and God won't love us. And I'm like, dude, we've gone down the rabbit hole. Creator created all this. All man does is watch it and judge it and try and categorize it. So I'm on the Creator team. Let's have more diversity.
Amen to that. Be on the team of the Creator, baby. Be on the Creator team. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All the jerseys are spiritual. They're invisible. Don't need to see them.
They are invisible. Like I'm an old sweat lodge guy. I've been involved in sweat lodge ceremonies and different native ceremonies for years and years now. From the Andes all the way up into North America, and a lot of different peoples and traditions. And the sweat lodge, the Inipi ceremony, as the Lakota call it. I've had lodges for many years, and I build my lodges now with a east-facing door, which is connected to the Native American church way that I was introduced to the sweat lodge 20-something years ago. And then we also have a west-facing door. The lodge is a dome. It looks like an igloo, but it's built out of willows. It's a frame built out of willows, and then you cover that frame with layers and layers of blankets. So you have an east-facing door and an east-facing fire pit and a west-facing door and a west-facing fire pit. Well, the traditionalists are like, oh, you can't do that. That the spirits will get you. I'm like, dude, the spirit people don't come in through the door. They just appear and show up. And I tell people all the time, whoever you have a relationship with in the spirit world, that's who you pray to in here. If you pray to Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or Muhammad or Tunkashila or, Quetzalcoatl, whoever you pray to, those spirit people all get along fine. They don't need to be right. They're cool. It's us humans that have got problems going on here with this need to be right thing. So bring them together, man. They all fit in that lodge. I've seen a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that even kind of reminded me of a line you underlined about downtime being a period of inactivity, and it's a cool spiritual medicine. That's an amazing one right there.
Yeah. I think we have such an opportunity today, all this fundamentalist stuff in all directions and all aspects of life. Western medicine is opposed to Ayurvedic medicine, and it's opposed to Chinese medicine. I'm like, wait a minute. The guy over here that's sick could give a damn what kind of medicine it is. He just wants to be healed and feel better. So if y'all want to stop arguing about who's right for a minute, maybe we should pay attention to the one that's suffering. Instead of who's getting to sell the cure. That's the way I've always been about recovery work. I'm like, y'all, if traditional recovery was if we had 80 or 90% of the people that go to mental health or addictions treatment coming out and they were inspired to live a great life and, just went on and were happy, joyous, and free, then I'd say, heck yeah, man, all we need is a traditional point of view. But the recovery world has never had better than a 25, 30% success rate according to all the studies that have ever been conducted, and So my response to that has always been, well, then why are we settling for this? You know, let's question ourselves. Let's create more ways to engage people. Let's don't stop here. Like this is a creative process. Life is a creative process. How can we serve more people in finding their thread back to their heart and their freedom and their spirit? You know, I don't need to be right. I want you to find your way to your happiness. You know, I don't need you to validate me. I'm here to try and help you find your way home, not my way home. I know where I live.
There you go indeed. So, in speaking of finding your way, if you were to go back in time and you were 25, but instead of that year, you're in the current year of 2018, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, man. You know, I think I would have to say, you know what, bud? You don't have to try and make everybody happy. You need to take some time and figure out who you are and what do you really want here. Because I stayed very enmeshed, and I came from a big family, and I was very attached to the parts of my family that I actually loved, which was the cattle business and the ranches and cowboying work and all that, you know, and I was just dead determined to prove that I could do something, you know, that everybody said, that isn't going to work, if you want me to do something, tell me it won't work, and I'll go try it. You know, so I think that's what I'd say to myself is what I'd probably do is put me in the truck and drive me out to somewhere, Arizona or North Dakota or somewhere, and I'd go put me in some ceremony, because the moment I stepped into the ceremonial world, my whole relationship with life shifted. It was almost immediate. There was a connection I made there that opened up a part of life that I had no idea, you know, it opened up a part of me that I had no idea was there. So that's probably what I'd do. I'd just say, if I met me at 25 today, I'd say, get in the truck, jackass. We're going for a ride.
Sounds like a good story right there to get, maybe your biography in a few years, get in the truck. Woo! Well, all right.
Yeah, well, how would you answer that question?
Oh yeah, that question I'll probably just tell myself to try to stay motivated and to just keep pushing myself despite all the things that are going on. Because 25, that was actually the year I lost my father, and I was going through a time and I lost track of actually keeping myself healthy. I stopped working out as much, and I gained a bunch of weight. And that was probably one of the main things that contributed to, like, all the weight that I have now at the moment. So I basically probably just tell myself to make sure to really take care of myself as well, because that's one thing I've stopped doing when I was 25.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's sure easy to get overwhelmed, man, isn't it? You know, it can be really challenging, because we don't see that modeled for us growing up. You know, some people do, and that's fantastic, but a lot of people don't. We don't grow up in homes where, you know, where people are taking care of themselves from a non-judgmental place. We see people staying thin because they engage basically in eating disordered behavior or disordered eating behavior, or, you know, they go to the gym and work out 5 days a week, but it's not driven out of a love or a respect for themselves. It's kind of driven out of vanity so often. We're not really raised in a culture that teaches us that taking care of ourselves is like a act of respect for the one that created us. You know, and then we take care of ourselves out of self-respect and compassion, and there's no judgment or fear, or need to prove something out of that. We just do it because it serves us, because it's good for us. Like, relax about it. It's all okay.
Yep, that's right. So put on the orange Buddha robe and shave the head, then walk out and put on a cowboy hat, right?
Yeah, man. I have more than once left the sweat lodge and taken a shower and put my boots on and gone and sorted cattle all afternoon. So, it's all. In fact, that's the kind of thing, that's the diversity I love about it. I love how diverse life is. It's inspiring.
Woo! Inspiring indeed. So for those who want to stay inspired, what's the best way to keep in touch with you?
You can email me at spiritrecovery.com. Go to our website. There's a link there that you can email, and or our treatment program, healing program in Nashville is called the Integrative Life Center. I can be contacted through integrativelifecenter.com, and I'm also on Facebook. It's Lee Richard McCormick on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn too, but I don't know. I can't keep up with all that stuff. I'd rather be out doing something than I would be staring at my dang computer.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So that's all, and I love to hear from people. And the book, the Hartree Connection Guidebook, is available on Amazon, and or go to your local bookstore and order it. Man, you remember when there were bookstores everywhere. It used to be great. Kind of a bummer these days.
Yeah, and if there's any bookstores left, you gotta really comb for them. You gotta really look for them if there's any left.
Yeah, there's a few. We've got a place called Parnassus Books here in Nashville that's great. And there's still a couple Barnes and Nobles around, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just an old man and I like that old familiar thing. But it used to be fun to go in a bookstore and look around.
Woo! So any parting words for the folks still listening?
Yeah, if you feel inspired, order the Hartree Connection Guidebook. And what I can say from my experience is we all have value. Each one of us is unique. And we're each worthy of giving ourselves the time and attention to work on the things that sabotage our life, or to work on and clear out the things that are in our way of feeling good about ourselves and enjoying our life. We're worth it. We were created worth it, and we're going to die worth it. And what we do in between is a matter of how we make our choices. So you're worth it. So do something. Take some action. Go do what you love. That's my advice. Go do what you love. The world would be a happier place if everybody just start doing what they love.
Hey there, buddy. Looks like you made it to the end of this episode. Since you made it to the end of this episode, do both of us a favor and stop being greedy. Stop it right now and share this episode with your friends and your fellow podcast lovers.